because I wanted to change the reality I was in because I thought about the future and then, oh my gosh, do I really want to see myself in this 9 to 5? My life is literally passing by,
Yeah.
right? So, how long do we want to stay in this same place? And there's another thing that we all know about life is change. We have to be comfortable with moving because it's just like water. Running water is fresh. Water that's not moving is just staying gross and staticky. And static water grows fungus and mold. A lot of stuff gets built up because we're not moving.
Welcome to the Travel Not to Escape podcast. I'm your host, Jolene on the Go, solo female traveler and creative entrepreneur. Think of me as your skydive instructor, empowering you to take the leap into solo travel to push past your fears and transform your life. Join me every Tuesday as we explore the world of solo travel with purpose and discover how you can use it for your personal transformation, learn how to make meaningful connections around the world, and reignite your spirit of play. We aren't just talking about traveling to find ourselves anymore. We're all about doing the work to understand who we authentically are, breaking through our limiting beliefs, and taking the leaps to manifest lives we are excited about. Through interviews, solo episodes, meditations, each episode is packed with practical tips, strategies, and inspiring stories from guests who have transformed their lives through solo travel. Whether you're a seasoned traveler or just starting out on your journey, the Travel Not to Escape podcast is here to inspire and empower you to solo travel with purpose. Strap on your helmet. We're about to jump headfirst into the journey of a lifetime. Are you ready? Let's go. Hey navigators, welcome back to another episode of Travel Not to Escape. Before we dive into this week's episode, I want to ask, how do you feel about your friendship making skills? Because a big fear that comes up with solo travel is, how can I make friends in a new city? And not just small talk friends, but meaningful friendships filled with laughter and deep conversations. Friends that you stay connected with, even if you're in different cities. And a lot of the resources that are out there for connection aren't that easy to find. You can go down the route of doing multiple Google or Facebook searches, going to endless amounts of events, and still feeling pretty lonely and empty. So this is a reason why I created Passport to Connection. I've turned the process of making friendships anywhere in the world into a fun board game style membership where there are clear steps to this journey and resources for you to understand the how in making friendships, plus a supportive community to go on this journey with you. So if you want to find out more and how you can join, head to travelnottoescape.com/friends. See y'all there. Welcome to today's Travel Not to Escape episode. I'm so excited to have our guest on today, Shawna Lumm, Move Abroad coach and the founder of the Move Overseas Now Academy. And today we're going to get to know Shawna's story of transformation through travel and find out how she is helping people move abroad. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I love everything that you stand for. Everything about play and connection. I feel like this is so important. And a lot of people that travel or think of travel, they don't think of it this way. I feel like, especially in America, our society typically is very fearful of travel. So I love
Mhm.
that you're all in with
Yeah.
like the truth and the reality of how we make connections. And honestly, that's how we've connected. So thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Yeah, thank you. And speaking of play, actually, I want to dive into that as my first question is the one I started off with. And it helps me get to know my guests on the show as well. And I'll tell you why I ask this question after you answer. What was your favorite childhood activity?
Ooh, that's such a good question. So my favorite childhood activity was funny enough, we would travel. My parents had a house in Lake Havasu, Arizona, and we used to travel every other weekend and go there to go do water sports and go on the boat.
Oh, oh, wow.
That was my favorite activity was water skiing, the water, just all of those water sports activities and being in nature in the desert.
Oh, oh, I love that. So, from the water sports, was it specifically being outdoors and exploring and trying something new, or was it being in your body and moving?
It was probably the body moving and how it's all action and there's always something going on. I don't know if I was so into, "Oh, how beautiful that is," because it was
Mhm.
just we were kids, that was
Yeah.
normal. So, yeah, it was probably body.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I ask this question to get to know people and so that they can get to know themselves as well. their inner child that we may not tap into on a day-to-day basis. So, Dr. Stuart Brown is a play researcher and he did thousands of play histories and understanding what people used to love to do when they were children and how that connects to their play as an adult. And he boiled it down into 8 play personalities. So this is why I dived in. Was it the movement or was it the exploration? Because explorer is a play style and so is kinesthete, which is moving in your body. But those were the 2 that you called out, so I'm thinking it might be a kind of a mixture of both. So, going into that, it's good for me now to understand, "Oh, okay, those are the 2 things that lit you up when you were a child, and how are those incorporated throughout the story now that you're going to be sharing with us today?" And we'll ask some questions towards the end as well for a connection, for play, and how that relates. But it's a good little intro teaser to who you are as well. Is that surprising to know that your kinesthete and explorer are your play styles?
No, that makes complete sense, but obviously me answering that question, did I in any way know that you could analyze it like that?
Yeah.
You're insightful. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, I actually give people a quiz. So I have my own quiz now that I based off of that Institutes of Play research. And it helps
Uh,
me give people suggestions on what they can start to do in their adult lives to bring that play and fun back in. And also as a starter for what you can do to meet people while you're abroad, because there's a host of online communities, a host of activities in general that you can go to. But where do you start, right? So, similar to what you're doing with helping people move abroad, which I want to dive into now. And before we get to where you're at the moment, where you're helping people move abroad, I want to learn about your journey to getting there. So, if you could share, starting from when you were a child going to Lake Havasu, tell us a little bit more about your background and how you found your way to solo traveling and eventually moving abroad to Spain.
Thank you so much. These are great. I love how you are tying all that in. So to answer your question, yes, I started traveling as a young child. I actually am an only child.
Mm.
Both of my parents are entrepreneurs, and I'm only saying this because I think it'll make sense later, but they're so ambitious and they were also exploratory and also in their
Oh.
bodies. And they loved that form of play too. So I wonder if that's why I'm the way I am. But I remember fondly from childhood days, we would always travel every other weekend, and I always felt so left out. I was already an only child. I didn't have siblings. It was lonely, the only child syndrome. It's actually a thing. You do miss that playfulness and you end up figuring out how to do things on your own. And
Mhm.
I just remember I would miss all the soccer tournaments. I was never on a team because we were always traveling because my parents had the second home. So grateful for that. And I learned so much about just, being able to live in different places and
Mhm.
being adaptable, flexible. And it obviously starts your travel bug when you're that young. And we would also go to Mexico as a kid because my grandma is from Mexicali and it's pretty close to part of Arizona. So I think that initially being around parents that were really open to travel was the first thing. And then we would take some vacations to other desert states and we would go to Mexico every once in a while. But then every time we would go to Mexico, which was a couple times when I was younger, and stay in these little border towns or on the Sea of Cortez, I just remember feeling so connected with wanting to learn Spanish and wanting to practice it. And even being from LA, I'm from LA, everybody. Hello. And just being in LA and just being a part of the private school system with they have Spanish classes, I was always into it and always wanted to learn more. And I was just so eager about learning this other language. And I knew from a very young age that I wanted to live abroad. I think it started when I was 11 and 12. I just felt this pull to the Spanish speaking countries. I thought I wanted to, and I was even planning my dream in college. Oh, I'm going to study abroad.
Yeah.
And I'm going to study abroad. I thought I was so dead set on studying abroad in Argentina
Oh, wow.
and paint a picture of what happened after that. I think I just, my parents didn't go to college. They told me from a very young age, "We don't have money to send you to school."
Mm.
I went to public high school. I did go to private. elementary school, which I'm very grateful for, but all high school and college, they were like, "We don't have money to send you there. You're gonna have to get a scholarship." And so from the onset, I knew that grit, determination, and doing a good job was always at the top of my values, and it always pushed me. I knew I had to hit this really big goal. And so I think my parents, being entrepreneurs themselves, hard workers, they went to the school of hard knocks. They taught me do things that are scary because then those things end up being they're not uncomfortable anymore. They are
Mhm.
comfortable. So I think I've had a track record of over these years, not honestly, like, not really being scared to solo travel,
Oh,
and I
wow.
think the first time we solo traveled was when I did actually eventually get the scholarship to play volleyball, so I played in high school, and I went out of state to Washington State University. I think you could call that solo travel in a
Yeah.
way because
Yeah.
it's you went in another state
Oh, no.
yourself. So I think traveling out of state, going to school on your own, I'm not sure if anybody listening right now, if you guys went out of state, that in a sense is solo travel.
Mhm.
And so I think that was the time and that really gave you the trust that, hey, I can move out and do this. And then of course, when was the first time really solo traveling? And when we're saying going abroad,
Mhm.
that was when I studied abroad in 2015, my last semester of college, and I went to Spain.
Oh,
And
nice.
that just changed my entire life doing that.
It's amazing. I love that you bring up that the way that you were raised influenced some of the no values and the ways that you really worked hard to get to where you're at now, because that's actually a really good glimpse into understanding the work that you do and how you're helping people. But also, I love that you give perspective to see that if you are in a different state, you go to a different city, that is also solo traveling. I think a lot of people think that they have to do this big, massive trip all the way to the other side of the world in order for it to quote unquote count. And I love the permission that you give people to say you can start small and yes, pushing yourself out of that whatever your initial bubble was into this other state that is actually necessary so that you can take those larger leaps in the future. So that's amazing.
And add to that, I actually teach a lot of my students who are in the Move Overseas Now Academy. It's the little wins. So I always say, if you don't have a track record of setting many goals and hitting them, what I always tell people is moving abroad is going to be really hard. Now, moving abroad is a lot bigger than solo travel. We're talking
Mhm.
about let's do one trip. That can be a very attainable goal.
Mhm.
Let's first start smaller. Let's go on a day trip or a night trip. We're gonna spend the night. We're gonna drive. We're gonna fly somewhere. Maybe we're gonna go to San Francisco, or maybe we're gonna drive 2 hours away from our hometown, and we're gonna spend the night at a hotel or an Airbnb and just be by ourselves. That is a huge
Yeah.
win.
Is
That's a set the goal, do this little mini goal. You're gonna get automatically more confidence from doing that. So yeah, I teach this a lot is get in the habit of setting these little mini goals for yourself so that you can hit them. And then you will be shocked at what you can accomplish after that.
Yeah, I love that, and there's so many things that you can do even if you don't even fly. Go take yourself out to dinner by yourself, right? Go on a
Yep.
tour in your own city. Work your way up. It's a little bit of a ladder, right? And then you can do the big
Exactly.
move abroad, and it starts to not even feel like a big move when you have done all these things under you already. All these wins add up into this big leap. I love that.
That's so cool.
So
Thank
th
you for like
yeah.
doing that.
Yeah, so then when you okay, so you studied abroad in Spain, and after that study abroad trip, did your trajectory change at all? Because that was towards the end of college, and then you did the trip, and then you came back to the US, I'm presuming. And how did that trip impact you? Was there a specific moment that you can pinpoint? And then what was your new path afterwards?
When they say this cliche phrase, which I'm sure some of you might have heard of it, that study abroad is when you ask people that have studied abroad what their favorite part of college was, they
Yeah,
will tell you it was studying abroad
I'm
because
guilty of
this
that.
experience has changed your life. And for those of you out there that are thinking, oh, I'm not in college anymore, you can still actually go in on these countries on a student visa for under $3,000. Spain, I went for I'll tell you, I'll get to this point, but I went back after that initial study abroad and I left my 9 to 5 went back to Spain, to Barcelona this time, and I did a student visa and I did a master's program and it was 3 grand,
Wow.
like, for the whole year, and I got a student visa. So you can go at any age, it doesn't matter. But to answer your question, how that experience impacted me, it was incredible. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I think in America, we have a lot of misconceptions. It's not even just in America, wherever you live. If you've never left or experienced other countries before, you have misconceptions, expectations. You think a place is gonna be this, and then you get there and you're like, "It's like this? What?"
Yeah.
So I in my was thinking because I was studying Argentina at the time because I really wanted to go there. And what it really made me choose Spain was the safety. I really wanted to be Europe is so safe. It's crazy. And I'm sure you know about this. Well, that was one of the biggest shockers for me is this is so safe. I can take the metro on my own.
Mhm.
I don't have to worry about stabbings and shootings.
Yeah.
Women actually walk around the town at 3 in the morning, coming from drinks with their friends
Mhm.
in the nighttime. The metro is open. It is totally fine for you to take the train. You do that in New York or Chicago, that's a no. If it's a weekend, like my best friend lives in New York. If it's a weekend, you can take that train at 3, 4 in the morning. But if it's during the week and there's not that many people on the train, you better not take that train. You better take an Uber. So it's
Yeah.
these distinctions you don't understand until you actually go. I swear to you, and I had my fair share of partying. I would come home 4 or 5 in the morning, totally fine. I was a young 22-year-old.
Yeah.
Everything fine. I'm t Bilbao, Spain, Barcelona, Spain, Madrid, all over that the whole continent, Europe too, Prague,
Mhm.
Budapest, all places. You take the metro, you're okay. This is not unsafe. And then so that was the biggest thing. And then I also did fall in love, not with my current husband. So this is with my first boyfriend. His name was Borja, and we are
Oh.
still friends to yeah. I fell in love with him. This is everybody's dream is to fall in love with a foreigner.
Mhm.
I'm telling you, let it happen. It just happens. And the Europeans are so much different. I had no success. American guys. I'm just gonna lay it out there. These men were just so different, loving, affectionate,
Mhm.
romantic.
Yeah.
Didn't care about display of affection. It was just, again, playful. Okay,
Mhm.
play
I love
it
that.
was a different type of connection. The romance over there is also different.
Mhm.
And so we don't know that. We see it in movies. It actually is like the movies. So, yeah, that was another thing. And then I did get an opportunity to do an internship. When you do a student visa, you can do an internship. So they gave me so much responsibility and I was like, I'm just this college student. Why are you guys giving me so much responsibility?
Mhm.
And that was really awesome and interesting that they gave me that much responsibility. And then I was able to get fluent with Spanish. So you can be fluent as an adult, FYI.
Yes.
Yes, it's possible. I was traveling on the weekends everywhere. The flights are so cheap to go throughout Europe around the world, around Europe. It's just like €100 round trip, for example. It's crazy. And I would go every weekend to a new place. Dublin, London, you name the city, been there, done that.
Yeah.
It's that easy and the rentals are really cheap. So all of that just baffled me. And I could come back here and teach English. And this was in 2015. So there weren't that many visas. The whole remote workspace wasn't really refined, if
Mhm.
you will. It wasn't people weren't doing that. So what you had to do was teach English. But I had a contract lined up with from back home because I was signed to go to a corporation. And so I had to go back. And I was so sad. I didn't want to go back. Well, there I was back in America. Hey, I guess this is what the cookie cutter lifestyle that I get to live.
Mhm.
And the corporate life was great. I'm so happy I did it. But I kept thinking about Spain. I kept thinking about this Europe experience.
Mhm.
And I kept silencing. I'm like, when am I going to go back? I want to go back. And finally, I just listened to it after a year and a half. And I'm like, I'm going to go back. That's when I left the picture perfect corporate job, HR, the whole thing
Mhm.
in Houston, Texas. And this time I went to Barcelona. I was first in Bilbao, Spain, which is the
Okay.
north. And then this time Barcelona. And that's when the next phase happened. And I lived there for 5+ years. I met my husband, Dan,
Oh,
after
wow.
the first year, worked in a company on the ground, taught English, beach volleyball coached, was literally doing all the side hustles. That's when I started getting into the remote space and started my web design agency. I have a web design and social media agency. Literally moving abroad, it opens so much doors. You just feel free and creative. And so, yeah, I started that. And then I finally started moveoverseasnow.com, which actually helps Americans permanently move abroad in under a year while saving hundreds of hours of research and thousands of dollars. And that's where we're at now.
I love that. I love that you're using the personal experience that you had, the transformation that you had in Spain to now help other people do the same thing and experience it for themselves, where they're going to actually be able to live that life and go travel on the weekends. And there's a lot of things about moving abroad that are benefits. There are pros and cons to living in the US and living in your home country, but I think that at some point in your life, it's just such an expander to be able to live somewhere different. And you don't know what you don't know. So it's good to at least dip your toe in and see what's possible for you. And you never know what kind of life is out there for you yet to live if you don't take that risk. So that's amazing that you're helping people take that risk. As you were going through the parts where you lived there for 5 years, did you intend to live there for 5 years, or was that more just it happened because you just loved it so much?
Honestly, this is the funny part is, yeah, you make these decisions in life. It's you take that next job and you don't know what's gonna happen. Are you gonna really stay at that company for the rest of your life? Who knows? Maybe you will because it's awesome and there's good benefits and you get along well with your boss.
Mhm.
Honestly, when I wasn't thinking that far ahead, and I think if you listen to all the life coaches and Tony
Yeah.
Robbins and all of our favorite podcasters that inspire us or
Mhm.
all of our favorite authors, Young Pueblo is one of my favorite ones.
Yes, I love him.
Being in the present moment is the most important because when we think too far in the future, it psychs us out. We
Mhm.
think the past, it also psychs us out. It keeps us in our tracks. So I think at that time, I was thinking about the present, and I was thinking about the present and obviously a little bit of the future because I wanted to change the reality I was in because I thought about the future and then, "Oh my gosh, do I really wanna see myself in this 9 to 5? My life is literally passing by."
Yeah.
Right? So, how long do we wanna stay in this same place? And there's another thing that we all know about life is change. We have to be comfortable with moving because it's just like water. Running water is fresh. Water that's not moving is just staying gross and staticky, and static water grows fungus and mold. A lot of stuff gets built up because we're not moving. But then there's this other thing, and I wonder what you think about this, is I wonder, have you ever gotten the comment, "Oh, you're just running away?" Have
Y
you ever gotten that?
y
You're trying
yeah.
to escape.
Oh, yeah, that's the whole premise of the podcast is travel not to escape. Because I actually dive into that specifically. And to be honest, yes, when I first started traveling, it was because I had studied abroad and then I was trying to get that feeling back, so I was constantly going on these solo trips, and I didn't realize for so long that I was actually traveling to escape. And it wasn't until I started to make the really deep changes in my life, changing the job, breaking up with the ex-boyfriend, moving cities, getting rid of everything. I started letting things go that were hard. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, now I can travel intentionally, travel because I want to and because it gives me whatever it is I need in terms of my values and not because I'm afraid to face what I don't want to face in my life. But yeah, that is something that people do mention and I think it's valid for yeah, exactly.
Because it's true. That's the thing about vacations. When people are in a bad situation, and we all fall victim to this, trust me,
Mhm.
I'm the same. We get into this habit where XYZ is not going well, you hate your job, you're like, "I'll just go on vacation
Mm,
and whatever, think about it." But then you come back and then, okay, a week, it only takes a week, couple weeks, now you're back in the
yeah.
same cycle. That vacation is only it's this quick fix mentality we have in the US of,
Mm,
just give that medication, but it's not treating the real issue at hand or the real
mhm.
condition. So I think traveling, it's good to spark some of these inner changes we wanna make,
Yes.
but I also agree that it can be escaping only if we don't do the inner work and notice things about ourselves. Why? can't I be more loving and kind and open like I am literally right now on this trip to Cuba, the Bahamas?
Mhm.
Why can't I bring my daily life? How can I bring that in more? And so that's where the real change happens where you start to think about how can I be a better person
Mhm.
from these travels. That joy was just sparked. Why can't I have that in my own life? And then it does sometimes make you get out of toxic situations, relationships, career paths.
Mhm.
And there's no guilt because you're like, I've been studying my whole life. I did this
Yeah.
I have an MBA. I can't just give it all up. You actually can because there's nobody out here judging you but yourself, but
Mhm.
ourselves. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, you bring up such great points because at the end of the day, it is us that's holding us back and we just don't realize it. We think that the thoughts that we're thinking, those voices in our head, that they're from society, from everywhere else around us. And yes, to a certain point it is, but we're the ones that are actioning those thoughts into our lives. And it's only when we stop and actually think about where is that coming from? Why am I living this life? If I'm not actually happy, if I would rather be in Spain, why am I not in Spain? You can make a lot of choices in life. Is it going to be hard and long of a road? Are there going to be some steps that you have to take? Yes, it's possible if that's what you want.
Right.
And travel is a beautiful catalyst, but it's just a peek into what else is possible for you. And it's that closing of that loop that is so essential. Sounds like you got
The
there
thing
eventually.
thing that will happen though, to touch on the question you had, which was like, did you know that you were gonna be there for 5
Yeah.
years? Like, we didn't, but everything was just flowing. That's the other thing is why put the brakes on something when things are going well? You're gonna hear a lot of stuff from family members, friends. What are you doing out there? Why aren't you coming back? Or just this expectation that you're supposed to come back? Because
Mhm.
that's what a lot of people do. They'll go travel. I have a friend, he lives in San Diego, love him to death. We met at Tomorrowland in Belgium.
Oh, wow.
Look, he works online for an American company and he does these 3-month travel stints, but he always comes back.
Mm.
And I think there's a reason why though, and I'm not going to share his name, but saying anything bad, but all I'm saying is he in a way, and I actually posted a reel today about this because I was walking my aunt's dog and this dog was just running in front of me. It was not, it's not trained. And I was like, Luca, heel, come next to my side. And it was just kept running. It was like, we're stuck. It's an analogy for life. We're on this leash.
Mm,
So basically, this analogy is he is on a leash with his company. He really wants to live in Brazil full time, and he can't because the company won't let him. So again, it's a gray area. It's not, oh, I'm working remote. I can literally live anywhere now. And so it's an analogy for are you on a leash in your life? If you really look at things and where is the society holding you back, it could be your family, it could be your friends. And what do you really want?
mhm.
Because that's what you should really do is listen to yourself and not listen to all these other people that are telling you what you should be doing. Because there's this whole other life you could be living, for example, in Spain that I didn't even know was possible.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's takes a lot of courage to take off that leash. And actually, no, it takes a lot of courage to even ask yourself whether you're on a leash to begin with. And then from there, take the steps to take it off. And I'm wondering, you have your program set up in 4 different pillars. You have pre departure, cultural orientation, helping people with job hunt, and then the housing and logistics. What parts do you start with some of this mindset, self-awareness, roadblocks piece? Is this the first thing that you dig into in order to get to the rest of the more logistical pieces?
Such a good question. I actually have 12 modules on the Move Overseas Now Academy. So, the Move Overseas Now Academy is a self paced course with lifetime access. I update all of the countries that are in there every single year. I have 15 different countries in there
Oh,
with
nice.
visas highlighted in each. So, they get updated each year and you get access to them. But it doesn't just start there. It starts with, okay, obviously, how to move through the course is module one. But module two is what does this really take? And we really get into what is this going to take? How are my habits? You get to actually take a deep dive and look what are your habits? How are your thoughts? There's some journal exercises.
Mm,
Some people don't Some people think, okay, I'm going to make this move abroad. Let me just look and research all the visas. That is
Mhm.
not the first step because you know what happens is people get into this research analysis paralysis and
Yes.
then they never end up taking action because there's so much information online. There's articles, blogs, some of them are true, some of them are outdated. And now you're having to compare them. And then you're like, oh, wait, but this person said this. And then you're not knowing how to put that into account for your unique situation. And a lot of people get really overwhelmed and then they throw the towel in and then they never actually move abroad versus get clear on what your vision is and what your motivations are and your why. You will want to stick with it because you now know where you are going in life.
Yeah, that's amazing that you start there because that I've seen that happen for people just with solo traveling. Clients reach out to me and they're like, I have this itinerary I found online and I did the initial research on how to get to, let's say, Argentina, but that they need that extra push to actually go. Otherwise, they just cancel the trip and they just keep postponing it. And then eventually they just never go or they wait for a friend to go and they have a completely different experience. And I think it's such a underrated thing, really taking a step back and diving into the journal prompts and asking yourself the essential questions because it also dictates, depending on the answers to those questions, your why. It can also dictate what country you go to and how you go about the planning of it and the other logistics that are in play, the type of job that you end up having. So if you move abroad, I'm sure you also work through this. Is your goal to have the time and location freedom? And if it's location freedom, then maybe getting a local job in Spain may not be what you want. Maybe you want a remote job that allows you to work throughout the EU or throughout the world, but have a base in Spain. So there's all these different aspects that all start from asking yourself, what is your vision of what life you want to live? And why do you want to live that? And I'm sure that's something that you all go through as well. Is there a specific roadblock that has come up with the people that you've worked with that has been, when you hear it, you're like, oh, they might not end up moving abroad? Or has there been something where people just can't go over one specific or two specific roadblocks?
That's a really good question, and I love all the things you're touching on with vision because it's so
Mhm.
important. Yeah, with roadblocks, I've heard a lot, and I've had people that have invested in my program and also a club that's closing now soon because I've just launched the academy, but unfortunate situations to where, their family members were getting older and they
Mm,
were the caretaker.
mhm,
So that is definitely something that comes up, which is, you know, that's really hard to navigate. That's not really anything they can do. They just have to decide, yeah, am I going to be the caretaker or is there somebody else that
mm,
can caretake? And I've seen people come in thinking they were all gung ho about moving and they did have an elderly parent or somebody that they had to take care of, which, hey, that's oh, by the way, that's what I did. So I was living in Spain for 5 plus years. The only reason why I'm actually in the US taking this call right now because my dad got really sick. So
mm.
I came back in 2021. I came back to take care of him. And then a month later, he passed away.
I will.
Yeah, that then I decided to stay in America, got married with my husband, Dan, and we decided, "Let's just get your citizenship while we're here." So we're gonna stay here for just a little bit longer to get his citizenship,
Mhm,
and then we're gonna move back because we have a place in Barcelona. But these things come up, so that's a really tough one is leaving family. Yes, you need to stay with your family and, like, moving abroad can come later because family always comes first, and I'm a firm believer of that. Now
mhm,
everybody has their own situations. Who knows, maybe the parents have long-term care and all that, but having those conversations is really hard, but very important to have, making sure what they want and everything. But then after that, I would say the biggest thing that psychs people out is if their friends or family are not on board,
mm,
it's hard for people to do this because I'll give you an example. My parents were total loved traveling. They went and traveled when they were 20 to Greece and all these different places,
mhm,
and they were, "Let's go." But imagine if you had family or parents that were trying to keep you in. How hard would that be to l So I am actually working with people through that, no that not everybody accepts this. Even parent I have one student, her mom is every time she talks about it, trying to put her down, trying to psych her out of doing this, and that's why the supportive community is nice because she can come in and be like, "Hey, this happened," and she'll literally send voice notes in the chat and be like, "I just had this, like, conversation with my mom, and it really bothers me that she acts like this," and
Mhm.
we're there to support her, and it just not everybody's gonna understand why you wanna do this, and so that's one of the other biggest things, and that's the part of the other support that it's really important to have a community like this, and I'm so happy that you have this podcast and you have a community to help others learn it is possible to do this by yourself. Are you really ever by yourself? No,
No. Yeah.
and you have this community right here,
Mhm.
and also you have people you're gonna meet when you're there, and it might seem like you're doing it on your own, starting from your country, but just go find the people that are also doing that online, Facebook groups, programs. There's so many people that are doing what you wanna do, and so you actually aren't alone.
Yes, thank you for sharing, and also thank you for sharing a bit of your story as well and what brought you back into the US. I think that is definitely a roadblock that I've heard also of what do you do if your parents, your loved ones are needing additional care, and does that mean you postpone for a little bit? Do you postpone forever? I think it's a big scary question sometimes to have to answer, but asking yourself anyway, I think is a hurdle that you have to go through. And maybe the answer is not right now, but then at least you have that conversation with yourself. And if it's truly what you want in the future, then you can set timelines and goals or even set up structures in place where maybe you're not the primary caregiver. Maybe there's some back and forth that you have to go through in order to accomplish that. But I think that first step is
Yes.
asking.
The other thing I wanted to share though is just as an example for all you and for anybody that's gone through grief, I know exactly where you're at and it's the worst thing ever. There could be a Shauna, myself, there could be an option A. Shauna decides to stay in America because she now has one parent left and she's scared to
Mhm.
lose that one and be God. That's one choice. I'm not going to do that. Then there's option 2, which is I'm gonna get my husband's citizenship. We might as well get it because it's great to have an American passport.
Yeah.
Let's be real here.
Yeah.
He has a British one right now, so it's not really doing
Oh.
him any we're gonna get his American one just in case. It's always good to fall back on something because
Yeah.
something else happens later, and I'm very practical with that kinda stuff.
Mhm.
And yeah, we're gonna go live our life again. I wanna debunk a myth. When you move abroad, this is another roadblock people seem to have. When I move abroad, I'm gonna lose connection with my family.
Mm.
My relationship with my mom is actually better when I live however many miles that
Yeah.
thousands of miles away across the Atlantic Ocean in Spain. I am closer to her, we talk more. When I live 20 minutes down the road in Los Angeles from her, we talk maybe once every week. In Spain, we're talking almost every day. Something has shifted,
Mhm.
and I hear a lot of people talk about that, is they actually do feel that some with their family members, that they get closer. So
Mhm.
I don't want you guys also I'm gonna be moving abroad, and I can't do that because I'm gonna lose contact with them. You can still have a really deep relationship, and it's fun because guess what? They get to come visit you.
Yes.
You can then go visit them, and it's never permanent. That's the other thing. Nothing is ever permanent. You can always go back when you
Mhm.
want. You can always leave Spain and go back to America or wherever it is you wanna live, Costa Rica. You can always go back. You don't have to you're never stuck in it. You get to decide. That's what's so beautiful about this life is you get to decide.
Yes, I love that, and, good points too. I also resonate with that where my relationship with my mom greatly improved when I put some distance because then you reach out because you want to, not because you need to, and you become a little bit more intentional, a little bit more creative as well in the ways that you keep in touch with your family as well as with people that you wanna stay in contact with from back home. And I think that, yeah, it's definitely a myth that you lose touch with everyone. I think that is what happens if you don't try, but there are so many different ways to make that aspect much easier, especially now in this day and age where flights are easier, technology supports it, and you can be creative too. For one Mother's Day, because I couldn't make it to, oh, I think it was during pandemic, I couldn't make it home for Mother's Day. So I ended up having a New Orleans themed Mother's Day date with my mom, and I sent her over Amazoned over an apron and beignets and a New Orleans cookbook. And I was like, okay, let's have this morning as a date together. And I failed horribly at making beignets, but it was a nice thing that we could do, especially in the pandemic where it was more remote, right? It starts to push you into more creative ways in more meaningful ways as well, because I'm sure if you're in the same city as someone, it's just so easy to just not do much, not create new memories, and more just, oh, let me just spend time, hang out type of interactions. But when you're abroad, you have to be intentional. And how do you be intentional while still creating those new memories with someone rather than just let me update you on my life? Let's experience the city together. Come visit me in Spain and let's try these new things. So that part also greatly contributes to strengthening the relationships too.
Yeah, and then the other thing I think is interesting, when you're living in the same country as your parent, you guys are operating on the same system. You're the
Mhm.
same every country has a different system that they
Yeah.
operate on, and it actually changes your personality over time. You actually become part of that system. It takes time. It
Mhm.
took me 5 years to really be relaxed. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I'm now back to the American system. I'm go.
Mhm.
I have 2 online businesses. I'm totally, like, Americanized now. But when I was in Spain, completely Spanish. So when my mom would bring up things about life or let's say a situation, I'd come in with a different perspective because I'm operating on a different system than
Yes.
she is. And so I'm actually helping her because I'm having her look at things and say, "Why are you worrying about that? That's
Mhm.
not a big deal." Whereas in America, it's we're all worrying all the time. It's everything's a big deal. We're rushing. And I was able to help her through certain things
Mhm.
because of her perspective. And yeah, and it's like a teeter-totter effect. She did the same thing with me. She has great advice and chimes in some of that
Yeah.
American-ness about productivity and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Maybe I was hitting a wall. So it's really interesting when you have these now, you're having a different look on life because of the place you live in. And the people, they just stores are shut. You
Mhm.
you go
Yeah.
for shopping for an hour and a half for your lunch break
Mhm.
or go have wine with your boss. Go have a full 3-course lunch that's $15 and have wine or beer with your boss during the lunch break. It's just a different program that's being run.
Mhm.
So anyways, that's what I wanted to share too is the perspectives change when you live abroad and you're able to help your family members or just have a different relationship because now you're not triggered by the things that they say as much because
Mhm.
you're taking in a different view on life.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And I haven't heard that in that way before, but I love how you phrased it because, yeah, there's definitely different systems and it rubs off the longer that you stay there. But there's beauty in that interaction, which is why it's so important to have diverse thoughts, right? And by soaking that in from the different cultures, you can have that just within your own family. So that's very beautiful. Thank you so much for being on today. I could probably dig into your story and what you do so much longer, but thank you for sharing so far. And I do want to ask you some questions as well that I ask the guests as I wrap up and do a quick fire. So, we're talking about being abroad and making connections is something that I'm truly passionate about. So, as you have been traveling yourself, what have been some ways where you have met your most meaningful connections? And what would you recommend to others that are looking to do the same?
There are so many, and I love
Yeah.
this question. Thank you so much for asking. Talk about the solo trip I went on last year. I went to a music festival in the mountains and I went by myself. I originally was planning on solo tripping. This is again after my dad passed. So we were living in LA, but I was going to go stay in our apartment in Barcelona. And so I just wanted to go check in on the apartment, stay for 3 weeks by myself. My husband was working. So I flew over there. It was really nice to have a solo trip, hang out with old girlfriends. I went and saw my old boss, did so much cool
Oh,
stuff.
nice.
And then the big thing was, as I was supposed to go with friends to this mountain town, which I used to have a season pass at because I'm a really big snowboarder. And we had a 5-person Airbnb. Guess what? Everybody canceled. And so
Ah,
I'm left with this fake Airbnb.
yeah.
The only thing is it was a music festival, so it's okay. Imagine going to Coachella by yourself in the mountains. So you got DJ sets happening at different restaurants that are all, scattered across the ski resort, really cool stuff.
Wow.
But these situations don't scare me because I put myself through them so many times. I'm like, "I can make friends."
Mhm.
And I had friends in the country, so I wasn't worried. But yeah, you wanna have some friends when you're dancing, but I made all of them. So what happened? I check into my Airbnb. What's the first thing I do? I'm in this building and I see a rental shop. I just walked into the rental shop and just started introducing myself to them and saying, "Hey, how's it going, guys?" I just started chatting it up. Like, just have some questions, even though it feels like you're forcing it, just to start conversation. Because guess what? Me asking that question, I think I asked something stupid. Hey, you guys going to the festival too? What kind of question is that? It just generated conversation. And those guys that worked at the rental shop, I ended up hanging out with them the whole festival.
Oh,
And
wow.
then the other thing, then I had my ski pass. And so I'm going up the chairlift, get on the chair with these 2 Italians. And I'm like, "Oh, what's up?" And they start talking to me, and then I'm like, "Yeah, guess what, guys? I'm by myself." So, I think to answer your, it's honesty,
Mm.
transparency, just telling people how it is. There's no reason I should hide that, and being vulnerable. So, I was literally wanting friends, so I'm literally telling, they said, "So what's up? How's your day?" And they were like, "Well, hang out with us." Because I basically said, "I'm by myself. My friends ditched me from Barcelona, so I'm here by myself." Well, awesome. All of our friends from Italy were up at the top of the mountain here. Come hang out with us. And so I was their plus one to their big group of 10,
Oh,
and they
wow.
were just like my brothers. And yeah, I just hung out with them also the whole time. And again, it's just being vulnerable. Tell people what's going on,
Mhm.
and they will invite you. Just invite yourself. Literally what I did. I said, "Can I hang out with you guys?"
Are you an
Literally.
extrovert?
Yes.
I was like, "Wait, this is like major extrovert energy you're giving off, and I love it." But I'm like, "Oh my
It
god,
might
that."
might be hard. Like, it might be harder for people that are introverts, but you don't have to be as out there, but, like, why not? Why not just tell them how it is? "Hey, can I hang out with you guys?"
Yeah. No,
I
I
don't see
love
that
that.
there's anything wrong.
No, and honestly, putting yourself out there, it gets you some people to connect with, and people are generally curious, especially when you're solo. I think it allows people to not be, if you're with another friend, for example, you're more intimidating to approach, but if you're by yourself, then people are like, "Oh, I wonder why she's by herself." It's a little bit more approachable in that way. I think that's, great examples of having done that recently. Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
And I
Thank you.
want to also ask, what one tip or question, piece of advice would you tell younger Shauna at the start of your journey, that might have maybe helped you, some a revelation that you learned later on in life that you're like, "Ah, this was huge."
What I would say is trust yourself. Don't sweat it. Don't sweat it because this stuff matters. All the things that we think people are worrying about, "Oh, they're judging me." Guess what? That's just happening in your head, in
Mhm.
our heads. And then I also wish that I would have gotten more into spirituality earlier.
Oh.
But actually, I think it was harder to get into that in America because of what happened during high school. People weren't very nice.
Mhm.
Bullying was definitely prevalent, and I definitely felt
Yeah.
that bullying. And so I just never felt a connection with self.
Mm.
And actually, living in Spain allowed me to shed those judgment fears. I would actually be fearful of going into certain situation because I would fear people were judging me.
Mm.
And that is totally something that developed for me by living in America and going through the high school system in
Yeah.
America. And that actually was a stuck with me for a very long time, and I wasn't able to shed it until I lived in Spain for 5 years.
Wow.
Now I don't give a and I
Yeah.
go do whatever. People still talk crap. Like,
Mhm.
I I see it in front of my face, and I don't care anymore. I'm just like, "Whatever." But again, even if I would have told my younger self that, I feel like it still would be I'm very opinionated about the whole upbringing thing here in America. I don't wanna raise my kids here. That's why we're going back to Spain. There's a lot of toxicity, especially in the LA area with
Oh,
high
yeah.
school space and how kids are treated and talked to and the judgments and these expectations, how you have to dress. You were automatically downgraded because you didn't have true religion genes.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
lack of community, just like social media and everything is just making the kids mean. I mean, I don't know. I had a really hard time and I even if I told myself these things, I don't know if that would have helped
Mhm.
because it really took me to go to Spain to shed these some of these traumas, honestly. Some of the things I couldn't get rid of. I was so scared to have a relationship. I didn't have a relationship in college. I didn't even have one because I was so scared of all of those things I told you, the judgment, fear that they're not gonna like me, wanted to get
Yeah.
acceptance, people pleasing. I was able to shed a lot of that. And so I hope that this inspires some of you that sometimes going outside of where you were brought up or this society actually helps. And I'm not talking about a week, 2 weeks. It does help a
Mhm.
little bit, yes. But when you actually stay there for an extended period of time, months or years, you will really start to see yourself becoming an entirely new person.
Mhm.
Weights lifted off your shoulders.
Yeah.
And now those triggers still come up. Those triggers actually stayed in my body when I would go to the town I went to high school in. Even a little bit after I had moved abroad, a year
Wow.
after I moved abroad, they'll come back to that town. I would still have those weird feelings. Now I can walk through the town and I'm fine. But you know what I'm saying? Those
Yeah.
memory storages of
Yeah, the
that grossness,
environmental triggers still come up. Yeah, that's such a real thing.
explore, play with what can be a possibility for you guys. The whole point of life is having fun
Yes.
and learning to connect with yourself, but also others. And that is really what solo traveling and eventually, hopefully, you guys will want to move abroad. If this inspires you, feel free to reach out and let me know if you have any questions. Would love to have you in the Move Overseas Now Academy. It's basically a bunch of Americans that want to permanently move abroad. We have a couple that aren't living in America, but that's primarily who's wanting to leave and then basically, I just help you save a lot of time and a lot of money. Instead of hiring all these lawyers and everything, I show you the exact steps so you don't have to hire out and pay thousands of dollars. So,
Amazing.
yeah,
Yay. Thank you so much for sharing that. And speaking of play, my last question for you is how is play part of your life and what do you do daily now that feels like play?
that has been a really important thing. And I think play, I started to learn about that in Barcelona. I can't generalize. But in my life in America, the dancing culture wasn't really a
Mm,
thing, and it
yeah.
was like everybody dances the same. I started to dance more in Barcelona, and dancing lets you be free, and
Hmm.
all types we're talking salsa, we're talking bachata, we're
Bachata.
talking electronic music. Ooh, I'm a
Oh.
huge fan. My husband's a DJ, by the way,
Oh,
electronic
nice.
DJ. So we started going out clubbing, and it wasn't the typical thing you're thinking of. I literally would go to the clubs to dance
Hmm.
and just to listen to the music, and I think just opening your mind to what is fun, what's a way that I can get into my body because playing is movement and connection with people, and so I think dancing was one of the main things that really taught me to accept myself because when you can dance in a room full of people,
Yes.
do whatever your body wants to do without fear of being judged, you have hit a huge milestone
Yeah.
because there are not a lot of people that can walk into a room and just go into a salsa class and just be like, okay, whatever. I'm just going to copy this wonderful
Yeah.
teacher that's dancing on stage who's amazing. Try to copy her to a T and not care what other people think. When you can get to that point, wow. You don't have to move abroad to get there. I'm just saying that that happened when I did move abroad. It introduced me to not be afraid to yeah, play, move your body.
Yeah.
Why
I
not?
love it.
Go to that Cuban hole in the wall bar that's in Gracia in Barcelona. They still have free salsa classes on
Ooh, okay,
yeah.
that's good to know.
The we should go.
Yes,
I should bring it.
yeah, I've been taking salsa classes for the last 2 years. That epiphany that you had of moving your body, and I've also been sober for the last year, and doing it sober, moving your body, it was such a big breakthrough for me of, wow, I can feel comfortable in my skin, in my movement, and just feel good in the movement too, and not feel the judgment and feel I have to drink in order to feel like I'm a good
Right.
dancer, and it is such a huge breakthrough. I love that closing it off, that you are a kinesthete, play personality, and you're bringing dance and you've brought dance back into your life in such a beautiful way. So I love seeing how people incorporate play back into their lives.
And if any of you wanna go dancing, if you're in Barcelona or LA, let's go.
Yeah.
I go to some salsa classes in LA on the Hermosa Pier.
Ooh.
Also in Barcelona, there's a place, so if you guys wanna go, hit me up.
Thank you so much for sharing everything. I will probably get a list of all the places to dance at from you after this show. And how can people reach out to you? Is there a handle, website that you can share? And then I will link that in the show notes.
Yes, of course. So you guys can follow me on Instagram. I try to post daily on tips, insights on moving abroad, from digital nomad visas to how to get your passive income visas in different countries like Spain, Portugal, Italy, Costa Rica, Panama, Mexico,
Right.
Latin America, as well as Europe. Those are my two focuses. Not so much Asia, but yes, Europe and Latin America. It's at Shawna Lumm. So it's SHAWNALUM, 2 M's at the end. And then you can also find me at moveoverseasnow.com. I just launched an awesome program, which is called Move Overseas Now Academy. It's basically a support system. I have a self-paced course, which you get lifetime access to, which goes through 12 different modules from, again, that vision part to how do we understand the visa and citizenship strategies to then diving into 15 different countries across Europe and Latin America, all of their visa steps, exact steps so you can apply. So you don't have to actually go through a lawyer. You can do it on your own. And then the actual planning part. This is the applying part. How do you actually apply? How do you relocate healthcare, pets, move with pets? And then there's the actual integrating into the society. I have a bunch of trainings on that. I have remote work and business trainings as well. That's an entire module. I even have guest experts that come in there that talk about remote work and how to make your resume the perfect way. So there's a lot of bonuses in there that typically they charge $200 plus for their time. And I've just thrown those in there. And then I have a travel hacking module. So there's a bunch of really awesome stuff. Plus, when you get in, you do get 6 month Slack support. So it's basically having a coach in your pocket like myself. When you're going through your visa processes, you can literally ask me any question. Even if you're having a mental breakdown, you just send a voice note and I jump right in there and help you out. I have people in there where she just applied for her NALCAP program, which is the Spain teaching English one.
Mm,
And then we're also doing some backups for her because she wants to maybe have a backup in case she doesn't like where they place her
mm.
because you can't really choose where you want to get placed for that program. So she's also applying for a master's and we voice memo literally back and forth. She'll send me 5-minute voice memos and I get back to her. And then it can even be like, you're sending me your documents that you need to bring to the consulate, and I'm reviewing them.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's can't say that I'm a lawyer, but I definitely help my clients through the entire process because I've done it and lived in 4 plus different countries. So if you guys want to join, you can actually jump onto a free event that I'm hosting. It's called the Abroad in a Year Masterclass. I will put the link below so you can jump in the next one. And I basically will tell you a lot of strategies that you should know before you make your move abroad. And it's completely free. You can join from the show notes. And so excited for you guys. And thank you for having me.
Yes, I love it, and it surprises me how in-depth your resources go to even be able to go step by step and be able to ping you if they have any questions. I think that's so beautiful because as you're going through a lot of these steps, moving abroad, there's so many intricate details that are involved, and to have a resource, someone that's gonna be able to guide you is so beautifully important. So thank you for doing what you are doing and sharing this with everyone that you can, and especially this audience, travel not to escape. So thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you so much and take care, everybody.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, listeners. Hopefully, this episode has resonated with you all today and inspires you to transform your life through travel. See you all on the next adventure. All right, everyone, that's all we have time for today. But before you jet set off to your next adventure, I want to remind you about Passport to Connection. This is an incredible platform that's going to be your one-stop shop for finding meaningful connections in any city that you explore. Search for communities, apps, groups, resources that perfectly match your vibe, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. Head over to travelnotsescape.com/friends and sign up for Passport to Connection today. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode, and happy travels. Until next time, keep exploring, connecting, and playing, and safe travels, navigators.